Good evening, everyone. This is Jeff with Astroscoop Deep Dive Astrology Coaching. It's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Astroscoop on YouTube, Astroscoop 3801. And we'll give it a few minutes to see if anyone else pops in. I see Carolyn's here. Full moon blessings to you as well. And we'll see who else shows up. And last week we had some major technical difficulties. So it got cut off at 20 minutes in, but I talked until the full hour. So I assumed that last 40 minutes, no one heard it. And I was just talking, but in any event, it was good practice for myself to go through everything with Scorpio. And of course, tonight's poster is different than last week, even though we didn't finish fully talk about the Scorpio 1 period. The Scorpio period this month has been thrown off a little bit because I had 2 weeks ago that we missed the live stream. So that sort of thing. But we'll wait a few minutes to see if anyone else comes. And of course, looking over here to the west, it's very dark, 7 o'clock. And it's been dark for over 2 hours. Now on the East Coast, it gets dark before 5 p.m. with the fallback. So it's pretty amazing. But today is an amazing day for so many reasons astrologically. This weekend is chock full of cosmic energy and cosmic changes. And there's a lot of doom and gloom going around the internet about some of these placements, the transits, etc. But like anything in life, you have to roll with it. Like REO Speedwagon, the rock group says, keep on rolling, keep on rolling. So, that sort of thing. It's just something you have to do. And the more that we resist change, the harder it is, right? I know that's a little simplistic, but we'll talk about all this cool stuff that's happening. Yeah, that's astrologers going crazy on social media with all of this interesting astrological stuff. We had someone just pop in. Well, I guess they left, but hopefully they'll come back. We'll give it till like 5 or 6 after the hour to go in here. I also want to mention the live streams are here on YouTube weekly. Last week's was Saturday. This obviously tonight is Friday. Usually it's Fridays at 7. I will be experimenting with some different times to try to get to a different audience as my viewers are changing rapidly. So I mentioned that last week the United States is giving me more views than it has in months, probably more than a season. And I had other countries like Russia and the Ukraine. So now the United States. But I'm also getting a lot of other more obscure countries that I'm getting new subscribers and new viewers from all over, which is great. It's just wonderful. It's just wonderful to think that you could be here in your studio office, reaching people that are maybe a mile down the street, or completely on the opposite spectrum of the world, in any direction. So I think that's just amazing. It's just amazing how no matter how many of us there are out there that do tarot and Reiki, astrology, philosophy, spiritual practices, there's enough people in the world to find you. So that's what I keep saying. There's enough people to go around. But yeah, there's a lot of viewership. My views are increasing a lot, which is great. And please let me know in the comments what you want to see in terms of videos or live streams for the upcoming winter. Christmas is about 6 weeks away. So I want to try to do some different things for the live streams and videos, but I would love more input from in the comments. So when you do comment, please let me know what you'd like to see in terms of videos, planets, signs, aspects, all that stuff. Just I need some ideas. I have a lot as always, but I need to pin some down for the new year. So happy full moon in Taurus. So you're going to see all the tarot and astrology people tonight and tomorrow, Sunday, talking about this powerful late Scorpio sun opposing the moon in Taurus. And we'll talk a little bit more about it at the end of the hour as well. But I want to lead with that before we talk about just Scorpio, because I know astrologers always say this, oh my God, this is the best full moon. This is the most magical or most powerful, right? Astrologers and tarot and the like, we always say that. But this particular one is powerful because it's a very late, mature energy for both Scorpio and Taurus that are opposed. So any of you out there that are late Scorpios that are born this week, we'll talk about Scorpio 3, which is the 12th to the 19th around, or 18th. It's a conjunction to your sun, obviously, it would be a solar return, but also the moon, that powerful super moon in Taurus, in the late degree there, would be opposing you. It's even stronger. So for an early Scorpio person, let's say you're born on October 24th, you'd be probably a 1 degree Scorpio. You're going to feel it by sign, but you're not feeling it by degree because we're almost in Sag, and that Taurus moon is almost in Gemini. So an early Scorpio person or planet's not going to be feeling it as powerfully as they would the Pluto planet, which is almost at 0 of Aquarius. But tonight's full moon is all for if you have a 24, 25, 26, 27, maybe even 28 degree Taurus planet. The late Taurus planets, you're getting that conjunction wherever that is in your chart. And that would include rising, the midheaven, on the house of family, even the descendant, and of course the nodes. Very, very important if it's the node, Chiron, or especially Mars, especially for people that have Mars and Taurus in a late degree, close to Gemini. So this is very fixed, right? We have water and earth opposing. We have Scorpio and Taurus. We have that lovely polarity in that axis of Scorpio and Taurus, which is so deep, and it's so inner. It's so reserved and so inner. It's about inner power, inner resources, inner potential for spirituality, but it can also have a lot of low vibrations that obviously can be negative, I think we're seeing a lot in the world right now in this week. Now, regardless of the election and how you feel about that, not going to get into that. People are either so happy or so distraught or somewhere in the middle. But you have to remember, you don't have to, but I suggest that you remember that you are in charge. You are in charge of your ego. You're in charge of your choices. You're in charge of your reactions to everything. You're in charge. I can't make you react a certain way, good or bad. I may trigger something. The presidency may trigger something. Policies may trigger something, right? Candidates. We either just like some people in the public eye, or we don't like some people, and it's very irrational, right? We don't know why. I just like that guy, or no, I just can't stand that guy or woman. So there's a lot of rational biases there, I think, that's coming up to the surface for us. And it's especially true for the Scorpio and Taurus energy tonight, for the late Scorpio and late Taurus. So we'll talk a little bit about the moon as we go. And please stay tuned every week when I talk about these live streams. I hope I'm not too long-winded, but it's usually an hour and 10 minutes. And then we go through all the celebrities in the last 15 minutes. And that really gives you an indication of how whatever we're talking about, the Scorpio period, the energy is played out in someone's craft, either acting, music, writing, literature, composing, acting. I said that. Whatever it is, it's how they use their energy. So I try to pick celebrities that really resonate with the energy of the week or the period. So last week, I know a lot of you missed it. I'm sorry about that. I know Carolyn got a little of it, and someone else, a couple other people got only maybe 10 minutes of it, and I did talk for an hour. So unfortunately, I won't be doing that Scorpio 1 live stream again, but maybe I'll do an update video for the early Scorpio people. But this week is the Scorpio 3. So today's November 15th, 2024. We're going to talk about Scorpio 2 and 3 together. I'm going to combine both of the decans, Decan 2 and Decan 3, and how they differ from Scorpio 1's, early Scorpio people, and what does it mean to be opposite of Taurus. And there's so much I want to talk about, and I may have to do a live stream maybe in the middle of next week to try to catch up, because there's so much I have cosmically going on with the transits and everything. There's just never seems to be enough time. But Scorpio people, you know, this is your time, this is your month, and today's the 15th, so we really only have several days left of the Scorpio period before we go into the Scorpio Sag cusp, and then of course into Sagittarius, which is such a different energy than the Scorpio period. But if you think about Scorpio in general, all the decans, Scorpio is a sign of transformation and change. It's very poignant of what's going on in the world right now, and it's activating so much, you know, dormant energy. You know, when you're talking about this Scorpio Taurus axis, you know, and I know astrologers really like that Scorpio Taurus thing. It's one of the more interesting oppositions in the zodiac, if not the most interesting. And you know, you have two fixed signs, two yin signs. You have earth and water. Yin, feminine, reserved energy. It doesn't mean literally feminine. It just means the feminine principle is played out through earthy ways with Taurus or through watery ways with Scorpio. And the power, I know that word is overused with Scorpio, but the power, the potency of Scorpio planets cannot be overstated. And that also goes for Taurus planets. So Taurus planets, you don't hear the word power associated as much when people are delineating or talking about Taurus. But Taurus is absolutely a powerhouse. It's a very fertile sign, right? It's the first earth sign of the zodiac. It's the second sign after Aries, after the seeds of Aries. Taurus is incredibly, in a physical, sensual way, very powerful, and equally as powerful as Scorpio, just in different ways. Similar, yet different. So with the Scorpio people, all Scorpios are emotional storehouses. So I asked a question this week on X or Twitter, and I asked people to give me what Mars sign. Mars is your energy and war and strife, and it also indicates how you may fight with yourself, fight for a cause, fight to protect your loved ones, etc. So your Mars, and every Mars can fight, obviously. Every Mars fights differently. Every Mars has strengths and weaknesses. And I asked which Mars sign people thought would be most likely to engage in negative behaviors. Like, in other words, to fight in a negative way or unfairly or mean. And I've only gotten a couple of responses left, but I want to see next week if anyone else answers that question. And I put all 12 Mars signs in no specific order. I wasn't trying to persuade. And I'm not saying that I have the answer to that. Of course, I could do a ranking based on charts I've read and people I've read. But it's very interesting with Mars. And the reason I bring Mars up is Mars is kind of a hidden ruler for Scorpio. It's not the main ruler. The main ruler really is Pluto. But astrologers more and more are still using that old school influence of Mars on Scorpio, because the Mars transit in the cosmic chart moves quickly, right? It moves really quickly, like we're in Leo right now. Whereas Pluto takes forever. When we hit that Pluto in Aquarius, we're not going to see, we'll all be gone, and we won't see it go into Pisces. We won't see the Pluto Pisces happen while we're breathing. We'll be on another dimension or another level. But that sort of thing is the Scorpio energy. The Scorpio 2 is November 3rd to 11th, and it's Neptune. And Scorpio 3, which we're in now, is the moon. So Scorpio 2 and 3, you go from a Pluto-ruled person and a co-ruler of Neptune. And then in this period, we have a Pluto-ruled people. The co-ruler is the moon. And there are little subtle differences with Scorpios that I've met and read for based on the dates. And some of those have to do with the degrees and the fixed stars and the numerology of it. But also, when you consider that the sign, the month, the cycle, every week is a more mature version of the sign previously. So that's the way I look at it. So it's like a cosmic cycle, a human cycle. So early Scorpio energy, like I mentioned, that October 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, you're looking at early Scorpio coming off the cusp, very raw, early Pluto Scorpio energy, which is very single-minded and piercing. Now, all Scorpio energy is single-minded, but here it becomes a little more diffuse in the Scorpio 2 decanate, which is the 3rd to 11th or 12th. You know anyone born that week. I know several people that have birthdays that week. I know 2 people in my family that are both born on the 5th of November, and they have a huge age gap with each other. So it's hard to tell if they are alike at all. But yeah, the Scorpio 2, there's a Neptune, so there's a wealth of feeling there and depth. And when I asked this question about the Mars sign, a woman responded to me on X, and she gave me a very good, insightful comment. She said that she knew someone, she picked Mars in Scorpio as having the potential to be the most negative. It kind of seems obvious in a lot of ways, but she said that she had known someone that had Mars in Scorpio that had a very mean streak to them, and she described the person as ruthless. Now, mean and ruthless. Now, can that be associated with Scorpio? Absolutely. It can be associated with anyone. And I think there's deeper reasons why someone is really possibly that troubled. Any of us can be mean by accident. We can be mean. We all can hurt our own feelings. We can hurt our loved ones' feelings with dysregulation, with all sorts of things. It doesn't mean that we have a deep-seated want to hurt someone. That's different, right? Like if you're in the moment and you hurt someone, verbally or emotionally, if you take steps to repair it and you're sincere about it, hopefully that's the end of it. But if you're troubled, if you're truly troubled and you have deep-seated ruthlessness or vengeance that you're trying to seek because of hurts, which Scorpio can be prone to, then that's a whole nother level of emotional distress and emotion or mental illness, I think. So to just blanket. So when I talk about Mars in the future, I'll probably do a live stream on Mars and we'll do some videos because I'm really on a Mars kick right now with the energy. But if we were to talk about Mars and Scorpio, and if someone born between the 3rd and let's say the 18th, if they also had Mars and Scorpio, that would be their co-ruler. You would look at their Pluto, which is generational. So all people born their year would have the same Pluto. But they could have a different Mars sign than, let's say, a Capricorn born that year on January 1st. They would have a different Mars sign because of Mars. So you would look at Mars and Pluto together to figure out how does this Scorpio person use their energy, their sexual energy. How do they fight with themselves, or how do they fight for their loved ones or cause, or how are they protective? And we'll talk more about that in the future. But I thought that was interesting, that comment that that woman made. I've known many, many Mars and Scorpio people, and that's definitely a discussion for another night, because that's a whole hour right there. But Scorpio Mars is well placed in astrology, but it's very all or nothing. So to have your energy in something that's all or nothing, where there's possibly no room, possibly zero room for flexibility, um, that tells you something. So we'll talk more about that. But with the Scorpios born in 2 and 3, and of course Scorpios born this week, like I said, you're getting that conjunction to tonight's sun, and you're getting that super moon, full moon right now that's opposing you. So you have to look and find where Scorpio and Taurus are in your natal chart. That's really, really important. So because it's late degrees, you want to look at where. So if you're a Scorpio 2, let's say you're born on the 3rd, you're going to be around, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 degrees of Scorpio. It's not conjunct the Scorpio sun tonight, only by sign, and it's not opposed the Taurus moon by degree, only by sign. So if it's by sign, it's an influence, but it's not as powerful, it's not as strong, it's not as close. But when it's close to that degree of Taurus, close to that 24, 25, 26, 27 degree of Taurus, late Taurus, almost Taurus Gemini cusp, then it's going to be very prominent in that area of the Scorpio's chart. So, for example, if you're a Scorpio, and let's say you had Taurus rising, so let's say here's last week's chart. So you have the rising sign here. So last week when last week when I printed this out, Gemini was rising, and here's your descendant. So if you were a Scorpio and you had Taurus rising, let's say at 25 degrees, this moon would be sitting right on your first house, and it would be in your first house of physical appearance and your mask to the world. That would undoubtedly be very, very highly personal to that house and to your Scorpio sun. Your Scorpio sun would be in the 7th, and the moon would be in the first house because it's rising. So you would have to delineate that combination. But when we talk about the Scorpio 2 energy, which it is depth, it's Neptune, and it's against the inscrutable moon decadent. So it's like depth versus being inscrutable. So Neptune creates possibly a Pisces influence. It's not Pisces per se, but it is a Pisces flavor, and Neptune gives those Scorpios more of an escape hatch. So Scorpio 2 is going to be possibly a little more prone or attracted to escape than a Scorpio 1 or even the Scorpio 3 with the moon. But the thing is, Scorpio 2 and Scorpio 3 people have very, very strong connections with influencing people, influencing the public, and obviously you hope that that's done in the most positive way possible and the most healing way possible. Because I mentioned last week, which people probably didn't hear, which was towards the end, is that Scorpio really is and can be a healing sign. Can really be a healing sign. But I think, with great power comes great responsibility, right? And vice versa. So when you have these heavy signs in your chart, a heavy sign like Capricorn, heavy Scorpio, the heavies, the Saturns, the Plutos, and every sign has something heavy about it. But Scorpio is unlike any other sign in terms of the transformation and change. And when you meet any different Scorpio person at different stages in their life, they may be different types of Scorpios, right? That would make sense. If you met a young Scorpio in their 20s that was kind of wild and passionate and risk-taking and maybe hasn't been hurt enough and hasn't dealt hurt to people or received it enough, that person at 25 is going to be a lot different than a 45 or 50-year-old Scorpio that might be at a different level, that has been hurt or has gone through losing jobs, losing people, death, or losing careers, or marriages, that sort of thing. We all lose things. We all grieve things. But it's very specifically very hard for Scorpio 2 people because of that Pisces, that Neptune influence. Scorpio 2 is very hard for them to get over things, and they can really get stuck emotionally, even though they have great powers of regeneration. Scorpios are great. The Scorpio energy is great at reinventing itself, and not in like an Aquarius way, not in an air sign way, but from the ashes of all the emotions, the emotions that Scorpio has deep down inside. And any Scorpio planet that you chose in this lifetime, any Scorpio planet that you chose, or the nodes, or rising, or in the 10th house, you chose it for a reason, but it has such capacity, such immense potential for good, and also immense potential for bad if you take the easy way out, or if the Scorpio person is not evolved or mature. I saw a comment today about a Scorpio planet saying that I think a big part of it is whether the person is spiritual or not. I thought that was beautifully said. Exactly. You don't have to be religious or spiritual per se, but you have to have some kind of faith in the world or yourself or your clan, your people. No matter what happens, no matter who's president, no matter who's vice president, no matter who's controlling the Congress, there are always things we cannot control. Sometimes I cannot believe how invested and crazy people get in the world right now. Like supposedly sane, smart, educated, well-adjusted people of all ages are just going crazy. And we all have triggers. I have my bad days, but let's really try to be philosophical about this, and let's really try to keep things in perspective. Those momentary, moody, dark moods and thoughts you have about the presidency or whatever, they're just that. They're transient. They're clouds. They will pass. Feel it. It doesn't feel good. It feels like it's never going to end, right? It will pass. And if it doesn't, then you get professional help, and you do meditation and therapy or medication or whatever. There's always help out there. But on disclaimer, I'm not a licensed clinician, but just in general, there's always help out there. So and that leads me back to the Scorpio feeling things so deeply with Scorpio 2. Scorpio 3, the same thing. And Scorpio 3s can be very psychic because of the moon decadent. But here's the funny thing about Scorpios, especially born between the 12th and 19th. If you know anyone that's born between then and this weekend, is they won't admit it. I have met Scorpios born this week that have had an amazing grasp of things intuitively, but they won't admit it. They'll say it's their education, they'll say it's from their job, their technique, or it's their rational scientific mind, which Scorpio has. That's very rational, very strong, very scientific, and often very shrewd and practical. Scorpios can have a very strong practical essence like Taurus, like their opposite. Scorpios can be very much realists, especially Scorpio 3 that we're in right now. It's a very realistic period for Scorpio, albeit super emotional way underneath. So I said it last week, and I know most people didn't hear it. Thank you for coming in, whoever just came in. I appreciate it. I see people coming in and out please, stay tuned. I appreciate it. Celebrities coming up. But I think Scorpio is really, this is not I'm not advocating for Scorpio. I'm not for or against the essence of Scorpio. But I think people get Scorpio wrong because they don't take the time and the patience and the love to understand Scorpio. And Scorpios, if you hear this, you know that. You know most people don't take the patience, the time, and the true sincerity to get to know that really the goodness that Scorpio has deep down inside. Now, why do you think it is that so many people are into astrology will say Scorpio is one of the first signs that come up when they say about people being mean, cruel, vengeful, a mean streak? Why is that? Has that been perpetrated over all the astrology books going from the 60s, 70s, 80s into today? Or is it because a disproportionate amount of the population has experienced that at the hands of other people that have major Scorpio? I think it's a little bit of both. But we easily forget the people that may have hurt us or slighted to us or lied to us that weren't Scorpios, right? Or didn't have Mars in Scorpio, or didn't have a Scorpio stellium or major Scorpio in their chart. You know, we might have quickly forgot. There might be someone in your mind from your love life or from your friendships that stands out so strong. So that's why you remember kind of that energy. But I think the Scorpio energy, especially the later Scorpio energy, it so needs a healing outlet. The Scorpio energy is so powerful and creative, and it needs, you know, like for Taurus, like a Taurus person needs to get in the dirt, maybe do gardening, get their feet in the sand. Obviously, that's good for Scorpio too. But Scorpio's trickier because Scorpio's water, but it's fixed. So it's like Scorpios need to do things that are solid and that takes all of their concentration. I think therein lies the key of why Scorpio can be viewed as very negative. Because the Scorpio watery, fixed, emotional energy is just that, fixed and concentrated. So there's no other sign probably that is so strongly feeling inside, and it's concentrated in this ball, this vortex. Cancer is emotional, yes. Pisces is emotional and feeling, yes. But they are not fixed. So the fixed modality in astrology is really where it's at. I think this is what people are referring to when they're saying that Scorpio acts like this. I think they're not saying it's not just the traits of being Scorpio or their level. It's the fixity. And I've seen astrologers do threads on this about all the fixed signs. The fixed signs are very potent. You know, they're very potent and they're very concentrated. So think about that. Think about the energy we concentrate every day. If I concentrate on being a negative, vengeful person every day, you know what? Eventually I will be like that, but then I'll just do myself in, right? And I'll drain all my own energy thinking I'm getting over on something. I'm controlling something outside of me or getting over on someone, but I'm going to actually do myself in. So any of us can do that. But Scorpio is at most risk of stinging itself. As powerful as Scorpio is, you know, people always talk about how amazing Scorpio is. And Scorpio energy is amazing. But when you think about how you use it, it's so important for Scorpio people to learn ways, if they haven't yet, to learn ways to channel that intensity, for lack of a better term. Channel that intensity. Every sign has its own brand of intensity, and we all can get under each other's skin. You know, the signs can all get under each other's skin because of karma, because of the arenas in our chart, the houses and the placements. There's reasons for that. But there's a lot going on with the late Scorpio energy. And there's some fixed stars here. We have Alphecca at 12 degrees, which is dignified. That's basically positive. 15 degrees is south scale, which can be loss or accidents to do with water. There's a lot of interesting fixed stars with these two periods of Scorpio. There's also Serpentis, which I mentioned before, and that's like snake. It's malefic. Mars or Saturn. Again, very heavy influences for these degrees. Now, these degrees are not the sun moon today, but I wanted to mention some of these from the Scorpio 2. And then we have Alpha Serpentis, which is closer to today, which is 22. Accidents, again, more Saturn influence, according to Ptolemy. And 23, Agena, success in the public. Venus, Jupiter, late, the late Scorpio period, which we're in, and we've been in the last few days. I don't have to tell you, if you know a Scorpio born in your life, or you're married to one, or in a relationship with one, or dating one, I don't need to tell you how sexy and charming and alluring they can be. And Scorpios do have that naturally. When I did my Libra a month ago, I remember I said that you will very rarely ever meet a Libra that's not naturally attractive. There's usually always something attractive about Libra people, and Taurus too. But Scorpio has its own brand. It's not just the sexiness. Scorpio has its own brand of that fixity and that strength that a lot of people like and can draw people. And it's also about the evolved Scorpio, the truly evolved Scorpio person. One of the big astrologers that's doing so well, God bless him, is Big E Astrology. He's on Twitter and YouTube. He's got a huge following now. Good for him. And he always talks about his Scorpio ascendant. He's a Virgo, but he has Scorpio rising, and I think he has a stellium or something in Scorpio that he's mentioned that I remember seeing in a video a couple of years ago from him. But I follow him. He's amazing. He's a great astrologer, deep guy. But he talks about that Scorpio rising, and he's on a mission. You can see it. It's a mission. The Scorpio person, especially the late Scorpio, they concentrate that energy positive in a healing way. Nothing can stop them. And imagine all that healing good instead of being vindictive, instead of being mean. I understand about righting wrongs and balance. Sometimes in life, yeah, if it's something that's not going to do lasting damage to someone, sometimes you got to call people out on their BS. I can kind of see Scorpio's point of view there, but it's the level that you take it to where the negativity comes in. But that's interesting. So Scorpio 2s are empathic. Absolutely. All Scorpios can be empathic, but again, they won't admit it. There's so many Scorpios that have this kind of quiet, tough shell. So it's not an outward tough shell like you might see in a Capricorn or a Leo, or a little crusty like Cancer. It's inside, but it's crusty inside. It doesn't mean it's negative, but it's crusty because Scorpio knows all the goodness that's in there. Scorpio's not giving you anything for free. Scorpio's saying, hey, you want a free ride? No, you're not getting a free ride from me. That's kind of the Scorpio agenda, I think. And that's part of the reason why some people see Scorpio as extreme. Because if you want to just take the goodness of someone that has a lot of depth and a lot of feeling, and you haven't earned it, right? That sort of thing. So I don't have any major Scorpio in my chart. So at least this lifetime, I don't understand what it's like to be a sun or a moon or a rising in Scorpio. I don't have any of that. But I've met enough of you, sun, moon, Venus, Mars, rising, Scorpio on the 10th of midheaven, which a lot of astrologers talk about with the public and career. It's just, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. So empathic is because of suffering. So Scorpio 2s especially, I see those degrees as naturally more suffering. Scorpios know what it's like to suffer. They may never give you any indication of it. You may never see it or even feel it. Scorpios can block it with amazing skill. Scorpios can protect themselves with amazing skill. It does not mean they're not hurting. It does not mean they're not suffering. for as much as people say that Scorpio can do hurt to others, they can really do much more damage to themselves, especially if they don't accept help or they don't go to the doctor, go to a doctor or a specialist when you need help medically, those sorts of things. Scorpio's sort of emotional pride, right? With Leo, we know it's like pure pride, but with Scorpio, it's fixed pride with Scorpio. But they're very resourceful, especially this week, especially late Scorpio. The charm that they have with people, and it's usually authentic. It's usually not a surface or a fake or a superficial kind of charm that you might see in the other signs because they may want to get something. It may be a charm because Scorpios can understand others intuitively. And again, an evolved spiritual Scorpio will be a hero or heroine for anyone that might be weak or vulnerable or the downtrodden. So that's another possibility. But they can also be smug. So the Scorpio energy can be very well put together, if that makes any sense. If you look at people that you know that have major Scorpio in their chart, they often present, especially Scorpio risings, Mars and Scorpio people very much, moons as well, present as they have everything together. They have everything together, they're in control. Sometimes they are, often they're not. But they give that impression. Can give that confidence and that impression, that fixity, that they are strong and they're going to protect you, and that they don't need protecting. And they're vulnerable just as much as anyone else. So that's key to that. But the late Scorpio energy that we're in now, it can be smug because it can be self-satisfied. So if Scorpio already feels like they know what they know and they have themselves together, they may not push themselves to take risks or learn or grow or expand, like we'll talk about when we get into Sag. Sagittarius teaches Scorpio to expand. It's not always a good thing, especially if you're expanding your waistline or other things. But every sign teaches other signs things. There's all those gifts that can be taught to the other signs that are different. So Scorpio, all the decans. You've got Pluto decan, second decan's Neptune, and then we're in the moon decan right now. So you could say tonight, which is the 15th of November, 2024, full moon in Taurus, you could say that not only are we feeling the Scorpio energy and the Taurus energy, but because the moon's in Taurus and it's well placed, the moon in Taurus is very well placed in astrology. That's extra moon energy because of the late Scorpio moon decanate. It's a very moony full moon, and it's a very moony weekend. So it's a very good time to increase your intuition, psychic tendencies, but be positive and take stock of impressions you get about yourself and others. Does it feel right? Does it feel healthy? Does it feel positive? Are you practicing something dark? Right? With the Taurus and the Scorpio there, it's not a good time for dark rituals. It's almost in Sag, and the Taurus is almost in Gemini, which is wildly different, right? Because it's cusp. So it's not a good time. Like this full moon wouldn't be a good time necessarily for like a major surgery. Hopefully most people are not having major surgery tonight. Doesn't mean it necessarily would be bad, but it's very, very, very heavy energy. And of course, in extreme cases, that's all I would say. Satisfying, nurturing, and ruthless. That's the late Scorpio energy. Very satisfying with themselves. Very nurturing. They can take on a lot. They can handle a lot. But they can be ruthless, but not in the way you think. They can be ruthless in their own goals with themselves. They can be ruthless. Doesn't mean they're actually doing damage or hurting anybody, but their thoughts can be ruthless. Their goals can be ruthless. I've seen people with Scorpio I've seen people with Scorpio that have had, especially Scorpio stelliums, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, especially when something's aspecting Jupiter, with very, very compulsive behavior that they almost can't stop, almost like an OCD type of behavior. And they may actually have that, but I'm just talking about it from an astrological perspective with the Scorpio-Taurus polarity. It can be very compulsive. So you need to loosen up at times with that compulsive, ruthless thoughts as far as what you want accomplished. In extreme cases, the hidden insecurities of Scorpio fuels their agendas. So that's where you get into the mean streak or the cruel, vindictive, all those things. Now, I say this every week. I always say this, every astrologer, I don't pretend not to have biases. Hell no. I would never pretend not to have biases. Of course I have biases. Any astrologer that tells you he or she is 100% impartial and unbiased, just cancel their channel. You're being lied to. Every human being has filters and biases. I try to be as fair as I can as possible. I have been doing deep dive astrology for so long. I've read so many books and looked up thousands and thousands of charts, literally. And so I just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. But that doesn't stop the fact that I make an occasional mistake, or why am I harder on certain placements than others? Because I may have a bias there. So we're all biased in that way. But with Scorpio, it seems like in the general public, for whatever reason, if people met one or two people with Venus and Scorpio that burn them in a love relationship, that all people that have Venus and Scorpio are terrible people. There are certain placements that have a very strong tendency to maybe act more negatively or not as harmonious. So you can look at it that way, the lack of harmony in someone's behavior when you're in a close, intimate relationship with them. That's more likely, is they just lack harmony, or they lack the ability to express their heart or their love. So that's something that can be tough for Scorpio. But, I'm both hard on Scorpio, but I both also really enjoy the deeper aspects of positive Scorpio people. I've known a lot of Scorpio people in my life. I've known a lot of Scorpio planets, and Scorpio is true blue. So you get a Scorpio person that's secure and they're on your side, they are true blue. That's a lot of value in today's society where people are fake or pretentious, people aren't authentic, or people aren't being themselves. People that are true blue, that's a good thing. And usually Scorpio planets do not choose to be anything other than what they are inside, even if it is a little crusty or a little rough. I'm watching, just popped into my mind, I'm watching a show called The Resident, Netflix series, The Resident. It's one of those medical dramas. So it's like ER, Grey's Anatomy, there's so many of them. I don't know, like the fire ones, like Chicago Fire and everything. It blends the medical emergencies with the drama and the relationships of the doctors and nurses. And I normally don't like those shows, but this show, The Resident, has gripped me. And I've looked up every single actor and actress on there, every single one, even the guest stars. I've looked up every chart, looked up every Mars sign, every moon sign. And it's just so fascinating to me how their roles fit their charts. Now, Morris Chestnut, he's an African-American actor. He's been in a lot of TV stuff and kind of like cable movies. Morris Chestnut is born, I believe he's January 1st, 1969, which makes him a early Capricorn. He plays a doctor on there in like the second or third season. And in his chart, in his natal chart, he has a Scorpio Mars. So we're circling back to that Scorpio Mars. And when I never looked up his chart before. I didn't really know too much about him. I recognized him from some romantic comedy I saw. So I said, Morris Chestnut. I said, oh, gosh, I never looked him up. I'm like, Scorpio Mars. He said something, his eyes, I was like, Scorpio Mars, instant. Looked him up, Scorpio Mars. It was just, it was like he's acting, but he's not. He's acting, but he's not. So Morris Chestnut, he is a Scorpio Mars. You want to see a Scorpio Mars person even acting? Watch him in The Resident. Very hard to watch. His character is very really rubs the people the wrong way, but his character's kind of doing an arc right now. So it's just an example of like even actors or actresses. Yes, they're acting, but that energy is there. You know, the Mars energy, that Scorpio energy. It's there. If you can see it, it's like what people say on social media. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. Psychics, mediums, astrologers, numerologists, tarot people. You're tuned in the right way. If you know, you know. And so that's just amazing. So that's another thing to do if you want to learn more about the energy. And you're like, hey, I've heard from Jeff talk about Scorpio. I heard from this guy talk about Scorpio. I heard this lady talk about Scorpio. Oh, I've heard all the same stuff about Scorpio for 20 years now. No one's saying anything new. Well, you just got to keep digging. You got to dig deeper. Look again at the people you know that are in your family that have those planets. Look at yourself or your relationships and find out how people use their essence. Look at them, but really look at them. Don't look at them how you want to see them. Just see how they use their energy. But Scorpio isn't good or bad. It's just power. It's power. It requires responsibility and it requires management. The Scorpio person, the Scorpio native or the native with major Scorpio planets has a lot of work to do in this lifetime and a lot of karma to work out, I think. And that's really, really true of major Scorpio stellium people. If you're born today and you're only a Scorpio, let's say you don't have any other Scorpio in your chart, not the moon, not Venus, Mars, Mercury, rising, then you have so much other astrological energy to balance yourself out that being a Scorpio is only one small part of you. And there's probably other energies in your chart that are even more powerful in shaping who you are than being a Scorpio. But for Scorpio people that also have additional planets and additional Pluto activations, there is a ton. There's always going to be a ton of work to do there. So that's always the case with Scorpio. All right, so let's talk about celebrities. We have first on the list, we have Charles Manson. I don't think I need to explain who Charles Manson is. I think everyone knows. And I put in parenthesis the date so I would know which decan. He's the 12th, so he falls just about on this last period. And some people say he was mind controlled, and that some theories say that people were able to control him mentally because they knew he was a Scorpio and they could activate him. So believe what you will with that. But again, based on his mental status and his emotional status, you know, he talk about karma. There you go. Grace Kelly, amazing actress, and she was with Prince Monaco, and she was also born on the 12th. She was also very troubled, had a lot of issues behind the scenes, and a lot of Scorpio people. There are, especially with the stars, there are references to alcoholism, but that's common with all kinds of signs, obviously. But there's references to, liquids, alcoholism, and possibly drowning or boating accidents. That's also a theme for all water signs, especially with Neptune and Pluto. So that's something there. Grace Kelly. Vivian Lee, another Scorpio actress. She was born on the 5th, so she's an early Scorpio. And these Scorpios are striking. And I don't mean, when I say striking, I don't mean just like beautiful or handsome, whatever. Just however it may be. It could be striking, ugly, or scary, or it could be striking, stunning, wow, but striking. Hedy Lamarr, a very striking actress, born on the 9th. Very strong actress, but she was also an inventor. And she was an inventor of some kind of waves. That's another thing with Scorpio. Scorpio can tune into, I think Scorpio energy can tune into, because of Pluto, tune into different frequencies and waves. And that's why Scorpio can be powerful. Scorpio, the essence of Scorpio can dig deep and isn't afraid of that from other people or from the earth. Veronica Lake, she was born on the 14th. There's another person associated with alcohol troubles. And the 14th, obviously, is Scorpio 3, which is the moon. Joanna Moore, another alcohol. I didn't look these up specifically. I just found these people. Joanna Moore on the 10th. Also, that's a Scorpio 2. And then I did a reel today on the composer Ennio Morricone. He did scored over 500 films, prolific, and did spooky music, like horror or mystery type music, did beautiful, sparse, like piano music. He's done everything. Very different levels. That's another thing I think the astrologers forget to talk about when you talk about the essence of Scorpio. Scorpio, I've watched other big astrologers on YouTube and X, 3 or 4 astrologers they're in the thousands and thousands. They have really good following. And I'd like to try to watch people that I think are the best and really know what they're talking about, but not only have an intellectual knowledge, but they have the right intuitive understanding, and they put it into everyday life. Because that's really, as astrologers, if we can't do that, we could be the most highfalutin intellectual person that writes every book. But if you can't synthesize it for yourself and for people that are not on that level, then it's really hard. But the thing about Scorpio that I think a lot of astrologers fail to mention, you hear about how intense they are, you hear how those emotional feelings, Scorpios are possessive, jealous, controlling. Absolutely, the possibility of Pluto being that, yes. But they can be that with themselves. But we forget how loving the flip side of that is, of the water sign that's fixed and concentrated and doesn't run away at the slightest sign of distraction like Pisces might. Scorpios don't necessarily. There's a lot to be said for someone that doesn't run away from things, doesn't run away from you or responsibilities or fear. So the essence of the true Scorpio, being loving and spiritual, is an amazing part of Scorpio, of some Scorpio people. And Scorpios can be incredibly kind. Yes, are Scorpios going to snap back or counterpunch if you hurt them? Yeah, probably. Scorpios not a sign to pick on, to victimize, especially Scorpio 2 and 3. That's not periods you necessarily want to victimize. They're not easy. They're not easy prey. But just as much as they're going to counterpunch you if you hit them, and by hit I mean a slight and something that's negative, if you come to them with kindness and something that's real, they will most likely, if they're mature, will give you back that in kindness 100%. They won't forget that. That's another thing. Won't forget the slights, but won't forget the kindness. So I think that's really the essence of this full moon with the Scorpio and the Taurus, is that you really need to combine that. And that if people can learn, if you can learn what Scorpio energy is, and again, I'm still learning about all that Scorpio. Scorpio is a sign that it depends on how much the Scorpio planet is revealing of itself. And often it's not a lot. Often it's like the 8th house, which is hidden and full of potential. But that's what astrologers need to focus on. Just as much as the ability to hurt or be negative, there's just a strong ability to be kind and devoted and protective of people that are kind to Scorpio. So that's why a Scorpio planet can, I think, be thrown off. You know, the Scorpio planet can act defensively because they maybe are so afraid of being taken advantage of because of that goodness deep down inside. They may not appear good. They may not want you to know that or have any inkling of that. And this also goes for 8th house people, if you understand the houses. If you have your sun in the 8th, or your moon in the 8th, or a Venus or Mars in the 8th, obviously Scorpio rising, or Pluto in the 8th, secrets will be part of you. Excuse me. Secrets will be part of you. And that's not necessarily good or bad. There's always things that are sacred. Scorpio understands the sacred things that some people shouldn't know, and they don't want to know, and people have to respect that. Do I think that Scorpio planets could learn to express a little more? Yes. It's not to say that they don't express, but I think in a lot of cases, the Scorpio planet, depending on the aspects, got to look to Pluto and the alignments. It's really hard. Or let's not say it's hard. It's a challenge for Scorpio planets to express the more positive and flowing characteristics of their sign because they're fixed. So fixed water flows, but ice doesn't flow, right? Fixed water's ice. So like vanilla ice, ice baby. Robert Van Winkle. I know that's a bad joke. That's bad dad humor. But he's a Scorpio. He's a Halloween baby. He's a Scorpio 1, double Pluto. But why does he identify with the symbolism of ice? He knows that he has that side of him that maybe isn't so nice and isn't flowing. But Scorpio, you have to look to other indicators in the chart. Scorpios can learn to adapt and flow. Even though Scorpio is very fixed and can be stubborn, Scorpio can actually engage in change more readily than Taurus can. And that's some of that. Some of the themes that we're dealing with the Scorpio and Taurus moon tonight is it's hard to change, especially the fixed placements. It's hard to change. And if you have any late fixed placements, that also includes Aquarius and Leo, somewhere around 24, 25, 26, 27, you're getting that opposition or that square tonight as well. So that's an opportunity for you to find that in your chart and activate that. Joni Mitchell is another one, amazing songwriter. She's the 7th. She's also a visual artist, and that very much coincides with the Neptune decadent. Yanni, the composer Yanni, who's also married to Linda Evans, another Scorpio. He's the 14th. He's sort of prolific in his own way as a composer, sort of like Ennio. Vincenzo Bellini, he was one of the most prominent opera purveyors of opera, and it was coined flowing opera. That's what someone coined him, flowing opera. He was born on the 3rd, 1801. And the interesting thing is he had Pluto in Pisces and Neptune in Scorpio, which are receptive to each other. Pluto Pisces. That's how long ago he was born. Imagine that. So a Scorpio ruled by Pluto in Pisces for the music. So obviously, Scorpio people are amazing for music, and 8th house people. An 8th house person would be someone that could be in their cave or studio for days on end creating something and wouldn't mind that. Whereas other houses or other places would go crazy. So that's part of the reason why, the Scorpio energy can be so hard to understand, because Scorpios have dependent and independent qualities just like we all do, like all the signs do. But nothing is so sharply contrasted than in Scorpio compared to all the other signs. It's sharp. The contrasts in Scorpio are sharp. Scorpios can be sharp-tongued, but so loving. And they can be protective, but they can be smothering. And they can be fearless and yet not take risks. Right? Look at your Scorpio planet and ask, what control can I release? Of course, we all want some control, but what can you release? You know, if you can loosen up, the more control we can release, the better off we'll probably all be going forward, especially with all these major, major changes in the world right now. What we're seeing is like a big play. It's theater. It's theater. So it's important that all of us in our charts, that we don't get deceived by our Neptune, or our aspects to Neptune, or our Pisces planets, or some of our other planets, other signs that have certain biases, because you got to stay sharp. You got to stay sharp and vigilant because there's so much happening. There's so many narratives that you got to make sure, and Scorpio teaches this, you got to make sure that your narrative inside, your narrative fits who you are, because we can be influenced in so many different ways. Now, my narrative isn't your narrative, and your narrative isn't mine or from this person or anyone that's in the room. But you know, a president, administration, or Congress, or a group of people can't tell you, no matter how much you may want it, they can't tell you what your narrative is inside and your path. They can't tell you that. And during Scorpio, we're seeing all this transformation and change. Look at in just the last 2 or 3 weeks in the world, the transformation with Pluto going direct in Capricorn, almost in Aquarius. Oh my God. Someone said on X today that the Aquarius Pluto is born to be wild. And I assume that she's referring to that Steppenwolf song, Born to be Wild. But yeah, that's Uranus. Pluto is going to be in a Uranus sign. It's going to be in Aquarius. So things are going to get wild. Things are definitely going to get wild. Truths are going to come out. And another thing is we have Saturn in Pisces. Finally, Saturn says, I'm direct today. So now Saturn in Pisces is moving forward. So as I've been talking about probably for the last 6 months, all the people that are born in the Saturn Pisces years, the 94 to 96 people, the 64 to 66, 1934 to 1936, if you're still alive, and people before that would be at the turn of the century, most likely are not alive. They've already done that. But those people from the 30s, 60s, and mid-90s, you're finishing up your Saturn return in Pisces because you have a natal Saturn Pisces, and then you're just starting it. If you're, like a 1998 person or 1997, someone that's 25, 26, 27, they're just starting it, sort of thing. And that also goes for people that are coming up on their second Saturn return after age 60, which would be someone born in 64. Someone born in 65 is turning 60 next year. So those people, big things, big changes with Saturn. And of course, you got to locate Pluto. But yeah, there's just so much to talk about. And I'll probably have to do, like I said, maybe another live stream where we talk about just the transits and everything, because there's just so much going on. But when I'm looking at tonight's chart, I know you can't see it, but right now I'm seeing Pluto direct, Saturn direct, stationing, Neptune's retro, Uranus obviously is retro, Jupiter retrograde, Mars is moving along, Mercury in Sag, Venus in Capricorn. And a lot of astrologers are talking about Uranus in Taurus at 25 degrees, which is conjunct Algol, which is the demon's head or ghoul or ghost star, literally. So that doesn't mean gloom and doom and doesn't mean all negative stuff. But it is a very strong Saturn, Mars, Jupiter. It's an energy. It's a late Taurus energy, which is the moon tonight. It's a late Taurus energy that is female It's yin, female, like it's like mythological passion, feminine energy, but the female principle and the passion. I've known many people with Taurus planets that are conjunct Algol, especially Sun and Mars people. I've known Taurus Mars people that have had this. And I have to say, especially the men, I've met many men with a late Mars Taurus. Now, this isn't to bash all Taurus planets or Mars and Taurus, but I have known many people with that are conjunct Algol, where I would describe their energy as very self-absorbed, not giving, uh, definitely passionate, but not always in a positive way. And so just sort of withholding sort of this like strength, but also like competitive and greedy possibility. Those are kind of the lower vibrations of that energy for Taurus, especially in the moon or Mars. It's like lower, greedy, self-serving, self-absorbed in a very quiet way. Taurus can be like that. And Taurus can be so slow moving and so stuck. So it's like the person, that planet, that Algol, can be so stuck in its ways, so unbelievably stuck in its ways, and it knows what it's doing. It knows that it's resisting you, and they kind of like it. So to me, the potential on a lower vibration would be that's kind of narcissistic. And if someone is an actual narcissist, obviously that plays out. So what the moon in Taurus, even though it's conjunct Algol and it's conjunct Uranus, that's very fixed change, but it's a little more well placed than, say, a Mars in Taurus, where if it was conjunct Algol, there would be more stress, and the energy wouldn't flow as easy. And you have people like Robert De Niro, Tom Cruise, Nancy Pelosi. There's a lot of people that have their Mars Taurus at that Algol degree, like we have tonight's moon, and a lot of them have had their troubles. They may be great at what they do, and they may be very determined, but they have definitely gotten into some problems in their personal life and can go too far with that Taurus passion and that fixity. And that's another thing with the Taurus Scorpio polarity tonight, is really trying to see someone else's point of view. Is there any time in history more important than right now to try to see your family, even if they disagree with you, your family's point of view, or your friend or your loved one, especially if you have opposing views? I mean, it's an important time to be able to be strong enough to say, hey, I'm convicted. My family feels like this. My spouse feels like this. My child feels like this. We have to try to give that to people. It's amazing. I've seen people that are generally very kind, calm, rational people getting kind of crazy with things. Challenging full moon energy for sure. Yes, Karen. Karen says that. Yes. Very, very challenging. Yep. Absolutely. And so for the Taurus and Scorpio planets that are getting affected by this full moon, but also the Aquarius and Leo planets that are getting affected, and then the fixed placements that are going to be affected by Pluto and Aquarius in the coming months. And in the coming year, we're only going to go to 2 or 3 degrees of Aquarius in Pluto. So that's how slow, that's the murk of Pluto. That's how slow it is. But things will be happening. Things will definitely be happening. But I felt particularly inspired today with the full moon, even though I didn't have a lot of energy today. I'm getting the messages. There's a lot of messages going on, a lot of messages. And it could even be people, even loved ones. I'm not a medium, but it could even be people, loved ones that are with us tonight and watching over us on this full moon. It wouldn't surprise me, especially with the Scorpio. And also with Taurus, don't forget with Taurus is probably the number one sign being in touch with the earth. It's the second sign. It's exalted with the moon. which is feminine. So the positive, earthy, grounded Taurus energy is, so you get, it's like we got the spirit world and the earth world coming together, you know, that sort of thing. So you can look at it that way as well. But I'm kind of losing my voice, but thank you so much. I saw people coming in and out, and please let me know. You can send a comment in a video or in this, or send me a message and let me know what kind of content you want to see in upcoming live streams and videos, especially more so for like the winter. I pretty much have my December things laid out of what I'm going to talk about, but just let me know what you're interested in. If you want to see more aspects, more of the transits, you know, I don't usually use like anything. I don't use anything physical. I know some people use like crystals and gems and tarot cards, and I have done tarot in the past. I don't have anything except for what I intuit with the chart. But, you know, there's all sorts of ways to come at it. But thank you so much for tuning in. Happy full moon. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Please don't forget to subscribe. Tell your friends and family. And then I have the weekly live streams. It's here on YouTube. Usually Fridays at 7. Sometimes Saturdays. We're going to change the time here and there. But I truly appreciate it. Every view. And also, check out, if you can, I can always do your natal chart. But check out, if you know your natal chart, check out where Taurus and Scorpio are and see how you can use that energy. See if you need to meditate or you know, anything to do with healing, anything like that. But it's going to feel very different in 3 or 4 days when we go into Sag, the Sag cusp, and then the moon goes into Gemini very soon. It's weird how that full moon energy is still there, but you know, it waxes and wanes. But then it's like you can feel it, but it's just like coming off. So. All right, thank you so much. Happy full moon, everyone. Happy birthday to all the Scorpio people. We have about 6-7 days left. So happy birthday. Thanks for everyone. See you next week. Be well.